I went on a date and saw the girl run away through the back exit. They always say the first date is the hardest. You know, the jittery hands, the overdressed outfit you'll regret halfway through your overpriced latte, the polite small talk that floats above the actual tension like a helium balloon you're both pretending isn't about to pop. But no one ever warns you about what happens when the date never even starts. I matched with her on Tinder on a Monday night I'd rather forget. I'd had 2 beers, my ex had just posted some passive-aggressive quote about finding peace by cutting ties, and I was in that toxic headspace where you swipe right on anyone who isn't your ex's carbon copy. Then she popped up, Leah, 28, bookstore girl, judging by the blurry photo of her leaning against a shelf full of battered paperbacks. Brown hair, sharp jawline, oversized sweater that hinted at a shy confidence. A profile bio that said, recovering perfectionist, be kind or be gone. So of course I was hooked. I fired off something generic about coffee and poetry, because what the hell else do you say to someone who looks like they live inside an indie movie? To my shock, she replied. Within 2 days, we'd traded Spotify playlists, complained about our jobs, hers in graphic design, mine in marketing, and agreed to meet up Friday afternoon at a little cafe that served overpriced cortados and stale croissants pretending to be artisanal. I remember that morning too well. I ironed my shirt, shaved twice, used mouthwash so strong it felt like setting my gums on fire for the cause of romance. I even Googled first date conversation starters, like some hapless teenage boy who'd never spoken to a woman. Maybe in a way, that's what I was, a slightly worn-out adult version of that clueless boy, still hoping to find something sweet in a world full of half-ghosted text threads. I got there early, of course. 15 minutes. Ordered a cappuccino I didn't want yet just to look less like a creep waiting for an ambush. Picked the table by the big window so I could watch her walk up and get that tiny thrill of recognition when she spotted me. I texted her, hey, I'm here. Corner table by the window. Take your time. She read it immediately. The little scene notification popped up, but she didn't answer. I shrugged it off. Maybe she was parking. Maybe she was fixing her hair in her rearview mirror. Maybe she was sitting in her car, breathing deep, telling herself not to chicken out. Spoiler, she chickened out. I saw her before she saw me. She slipped through the cafe door like she was trying to slip past her own shadow. She looked not quite like her photos, but not worse either. Just more real. Her hair wasn't styled. Her coat was too big. She looked softer somehow, like a person, not a curated image. She scanned the cafe, her eyes skipping right over me. She pulled out her phone. I saw my message open on her screen as she thumbed it. For a second, I thought she'd wave, or smile, or at least do that awkward thing where she half raises a hand and mouths high across the tables. But she didn't. Instead, she turned. And like she'd rehearsed it, she drifted past the counter, past the barista who didn't even look up, and pushed through the swinging door marked staff only, deliveries in rear. I just sat there, my spoon halfway to my mouth. I'd been stirring my coffee, pretending to look busy, pretending not to stare. It hit me too slow to stand up and stop her. She was gone before my brain caught up with my eyes. So I did what any sensible, wounded idiot would do. I paid for my untouched coffee, tipped too much out of embarrassment, and stormed out the front door. I circled the block like some sitcom cliche, half hoping to catch her mid-sprint so I could. What exactly? Lecture her on ghosting etiquette? Demand an apology for the latte I didn't even want? She was nowhere. I went home and turned my phone off. The indignation simmered all evening, bubbling with the kind of bitterness only a freshly bruised ego can cook up. I told myself I'd dodged a bullet, that anyone so spineless wasn't worth my time anyway, that I was better off. I even drafted a message. Hey, next time just tell a guy you're not coming instead of pulling a cartoon villain escape. Grow up. I didn't send it. Not because I'm some enlightened Zen master, mostly because I didn't want to look like the kind of petty loser who writes breakup texts for a date that never even happened. I lay in bed that night replaying the scene. Her face, pale and stiff, her eyes wide but unseeing, the quick shuffle past the pastries and cappuccinos, the push through that back door like it was her only way out of a burning building. It stung, yeah? But underneath the sting, there was something else scratching at me. A question I didn't want to answer yet. By Monday, I'd almost managed to laugh about it. I told my coworker about the girl who Houdini'd through the back exit, and we got a few good chuckles out of it over lunch. It felt safer that way to make it a punchline. Easier than admitting it hit deeper than just one wasted afternoon. I'd mostly moved on. And then, 3 nights later, she texted me. The message came at 11:43 p.m. on a Tuesday, which is exactly the hour when your guard is lowest and your mind is just awake enough to wander into all the places you've spent the whole day avoiding. I was half watching reruns of The Office, half scrolling through memes I'd already seen twice, when my phone buzzed. For a second, I thought it was my brother, Or maybe my mom checking if I'd remembered to pay the internet bill she still pretended wasn't my responsibility. But it wasn't them. It was her. Leah. Hey, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to say sorry. I didn't open it at first. I just stared at the notification lighting up the lock screen. Her name floating there like it was still attached to that girl who slipped out the back door. I wanted to be mad. I wanted to let it expire into the digital void, her apology dissolving in the same thin air she'd left me sitting in. But curiosity is a mean little bastard. So I opened it. I'm sorry. I just don't look as good in real life as I do in my photos, and I got scared you'd be disappointed. That was it. No excuses about traffic, no lie about an emergency call from her mom, no blame pushed onto me for being early or late or whatever. Just that raw confession, the kind of thing people type when they can't bear to say it out loud. At first, I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so achingly human it hurt. Here I was, replaying that moment like she'd spat in my coffee and skipped town to avoid paying for it, and the whole time, she was hiding from herself more than from me. I reread it 3 times, the words digging under my skin. I got scared you'd be disappointed. I mean, what do you even say to that? There's no witty comeback for a fear that deep. No sarcastic quip that doesn't taste like acid in your mouth. So I did the thing I do best when I feel too much. I stalled. I left her on read for a whole day. Maybe she deserved that tiny bit of discomfort, I told myself. But mostly, I was just trying to untangle the knot in my chest that her words had left behind. I thought about all the filters, the angles, the clever captions we polish until they're shiny enough to hide behind. I thought about how I'd picked my own Tinder photos, the one where my jawline looked sharper than it really is, the one with my niece so I'd seem wholesome but not suspiciously single. The blurry candid that made me look adventurous when all I'd done was stand on a hill during a hike I'd hated. I thought about how many times I'd second-guessed whether I was enough for someone to swipe right on. I thought about how she'd chosen to vanish instead of sit down and be seen for who she really was. And yeah, that stung worse than the wasted cappuccino. The next night, I finally wrote her back. I wasn't expecting perfection, Leah. I just wanted to meet a real, living person, not a Barbie doll. That's all. I hit send before I could overthink it. Before I could sand down the edge and make it more palatable. I wanted her to feel the truth of it, that the thing she thought would disappoint me was exactly the thing I'd been craving. No mask. No fake. Just her. She didn't reply. Not that night. Not the next day. Not ever. Part of me hated that. Another part understood. Some apologies aren't an opening. They're a confession people need to whisper just once before they bury themselves again. Maybe she read my message. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she read it and hated me for seeing through the cracks she'd worked so hard to plaster over. I didn't chase her. I didn't text again. I let her silence settle into the space between us like dust on a shelf you stop noticing once it's thick enough. Weeks rolled by. My life slid back into its mundane routine. Work, sleep, swipe, repeat. I went on a couple more dates. None spectacular, none catastrophic enough to make a story worth telling. Mostly, I just drifted. Some nights, I'd catch myself wondering if she'd popped back on Tinder under a new photo set, softer filters, a different pose. And then, one Saturday afternoon, I saw her. I was at the mall, picking up socks of all things. I'd just come out of a store, juggling a paper bag and my phone, half cursing the text my brother had sent about needing to borrow money again. And there she was, Leah, about 10 feet away. No makeup. No filters. No carefully curated pose. She was laughing at something her friend said, head thrown back in a way that made her hair spill across her shoulders like it didn't care what it looked like. She was beautiful, not in that sharp, Instagram-perfect way, but in the real way. The way you don't swipe on. The way you notice when you're too busy to notice. She saw me at the same moment. Our eyes locked. For half a heartbeat, I thought she might panic again, slip behind a display rack or duck into a store. But she didn't. She just smiled. A small, tired, genuine smile. The kind you give to someone who knows something about you that you'd rather keep hidden, but you're glad they didn't use it to hurt you. I nodded back. Didn't wave. Didn't say hi. Didn't chase her. We just stood there for a beat, 2 people who could have been something, maybe, in a less terrified world. And then she turned back to her friend, and I turned back to my stupid bag of socks, and we kept walking. No resentment. No regret. Just this tiny, flickering respect for someone else's messy courage, and for my own, too. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is just see someone. And let them go. It's funny how you can carry a ghost inside you, a person who's still alive, breathing the same stale mall air as you, but who flickers in your mind like a half-finished sentence. After that accidental run-in, I thought I'd shaken her off. I told myself, that's closure, buddy. A nod, a smile, 2 steps past each other, no drama, no second chances, no desperate midnight text begging to try again. But ghosts don't work like that. They stay lodged in the soft places, the quiet parts of your brain that get loud when you're stuck in traffic or standing in line for coffee, The same cafe you can't step into now without half expecting to see her slipping out the back again. A week after I saw her at the mall, I deleted Tinder. Not out of spite, not because I was taking some performative break from modern dating, but because every new match felt faker than the last. Each carefully curated face, each bio about looking for something real that was really just another ad for a person they were too scared to be in real life. I couldn't stand it. Not after Leah. Because say what you want about her, about how she bolted, about how she wasted my time, but at least her fear was honest. Brutal, yes, but real in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. I'd take that any day over another girl who'd sit across from me for an hour, nodding at all the right moments, only to vanish into the same black hole where unread texts and dead phone batteries go to die. So I buried the app icon somewhere deep in my phone, next to the calorie tracker I hadn't opened since 2022. And just like that, the idea of meeting anyone new felt more exhausting than lonely. 3 nights later, I found myself back at that cafe. Not for some poetic, full-circle nonsense. I just really needed their Wi-Fi after my own cut out mid-deadline. I ordered a cappuccino again, because apparently I like being haunted by bad memories. The place was nearly empty. The same barista was working, though she didn't recognize me, which stung more than I'd admit. I wondered if she'd even noticed that girl slip out the back that day, if she'd pieced it together when I stormed out like a Ghostbuster without a clue. Probably not. Nobody cares about your tiny humiliations except you. I settled into the same corner table, opened my laptop, pretended to work while my mind wandered back to that back door. I half expected Leah to push through it again, this time walking in, not out. But of course, the door stayed shut. And because I'm a masochist, I checked her Tinder profile again. Old habit, muscle memory. But of course, I'd forgotten I'd deleted the app. So I sat there, staring at my own reflection in the dark screen of my phone, feeling like the punchline to a joke I'd written for myself. That night, I dreamed about her. Not in some romantic way, don't get too misty-eyed. In the dream, we were both sitting at the cafe, but it wasn't ours. It was bigger, louder, crowded with people whose faces I couldn't quite see. She was just sitting there across from me. No phone between us, no filters, no makeup. Just Leah, picking apart a croissant she never ate, her eyes darting over my shoulder like she was planning her next escape. In the dream, I didn't say anything clever. I just reached across the table and pushed the pastry crumbs into a neat pile with my finger. She laughed, the same laugh I'd seen at the mall, the one that made her look alive in a way no Tinder photo ever could. And then she got up and left. No back door this time, just the front. Just gone. When I woke up, I could still feel the warmth of her hand brushing mine when she stood. I lay there in the dark, more tired than I had been before I fell asleep. A few days later, my coworker Jonah tried to drag me back onto Tinder. He cornered me by the vending machine like we were teenagers plotting a heist instead of sad adults stealing chocolate during a sales meeting break. Dude, you've been single too long. Just swipe. Get back out there, he said through a mouthful of pretzels. I told him no. He asked why. So I told him about Leah, the real story, not the half-laughing version I'd fed him before. About the back door. The apology. The mall. The way she looked when she thought no one was watching. When I finished, he just stared at me like I'd read him some tragic short story instead of describing a Tinder flake. So she ghosted you, man. That's it. Don't make it deep. And maybe he was right. Maybe it wasn't deep. Maybe I was just romanticizing my own rejection to feel less pathetic about it. But that's the thing, isn't it? We all do it. We all build myths out of these tiny hurts so we can keep pretending they mean something bigger. That there's a lesson to file away. That the next person won't run. Jonah handed me his phone. At least pick someone for me to swipe on. For good luck. So I did. I picked someone who looked like they'd never sneak out a back door. But even as I handed his phone back, I knew I was lying to myself. Anybody can run. Sometimes they have to. I haven't seen Leah since the mall. Maybe I never will. But sometimes when I walk past that cafe, I catch myself glancing at the delivery door, half hoping, half dreading. Not because I want her to come back. Not because I think we'd try again. Just because I'd like to think she doesn't run anymore. And maybe, if I'm being honest, maybe I'd like to think I wouldn't run either. A month later, the universe, in its infinite sense of humor, decided to test my half-baked theories about ghosts and people who run. It didn't send Leah back through that back door, or drop her into my Tinder queue for a second chance at mutual disappointment. No, it sent me a different reminder that people's insecurities don't vanish just because you want them to. It started with a text from my older sister, Mary Ann. She's one of those people who's always just checking in, which really means I'm bored at work and want to be reassured you're not dead in a ditch somewhere. I told her I was alive. She asked if I was dating anyone. I laughed. She sent me 3 heart emojis anyway, like she'd heard an entirely different answer. Then she dropped the real bomb. You should come over for dinner Sunday. I want you to meet someone. My first reaction was a bitter bark of a laugh, because of course my sister would think fixing my non-existent love life was her personal charity project. But I said yes. Not because I was ready to be paraded in front of some lonely friend of a friend, but because I hadn't seen her kids in weeks, and if nothing else, they'd remind me how easy it is to be loved when you're 4 feet tall and sticky with popsicle residue. So Sunday came. I bought a bottle of cheap wine on the way, the kind Marianne always pretends to like because she thinks I can't afford better, which is only half true. When I got there, she greeted me at the door like she was about to sell me a used car. She didn't waste time. Barely let me take my shoes off before she was steering me into the living room, where her friend was waiting. Clara. 30-something, nice smile, nervous energy radiating off her like a Wi-Fi signal I didn't ask to connect to. Clara stood up when she saw me, smoothed down her hair like she was about to pose for a photo that might get judged later. We did the awkward handshake that turned into a half-hug because Marianne was beaming at us like we were already engaged. I wanted to hate it. I wanted to hate her for agreeing to this, for needing this. But mostly, I hated how easy it was to see myself in her, standing there, pretending to look confident while wondering what parts of herself she should hide to make this stranger like her for an hour. Dinner was fine, meaning it was bland chicken and polite questions. She asked about my job. I asked about hers, something in HR. She complimented my watch. I complimented her earrings. We both complimented Marianne's cooking, which was the biggest lie on the table. Through it all, I caught Clara glancing at her phone every so often, probably checking her reflection in the black screen, just to see what I was seeing. Halfway through dessert, a store-bought pie that Marianne tried to pass off as homemade, Clara excused herself to the bathroom. When she was gone, Marianne gave me that look. The one that said, "Well, she's nice," I said, which is the diplomatic way of saying I feel nothing, but I'm too polite to say it out loud. Marianne's face fell just a fraction. "She's had a rough year," she said, like that was supposed to make me want her more. "She deserves someone nice." "I'm not sure I qualify," I said, half joking. Marianne swatted my shoulder like I was 12 again. "Just try." She's trying too. And that's what stuck with me, the word. Trying. Because that's what it is, isn't it? This clumsy dance where everyone tries so hard to look worth loving that they forget how to just be. Clara came back. We finished our pie. We both promised to get coffee sometime. Marianne clapped her hands like she'd just arranged a royal wedding. I walked Clara to her car out of sheer decency. She stood there fumbling with her keys, cheeks pink, eyes darting anywhere but at me. For a second, I almost leaned in. Not because I wanted to kiss her, but because I felt like it was expected. Like maybe it would prove we were two normal people doing normal things instead of two half-scared humans pretending not to notice the panic fluttering in each other's throats. But I didn't. I stepped back instead. She looked relieved and disappointed all at once, a look I recognized too well. "Good night, Clara," I said, and she nodded like she couldn't quite trust her voice to agree with me. I watched her car pull away. Then I stood there in Marianne's driveway, hands in my pockets, listening to the echo of that back door slamming shut in my head. I didn't text Clara. She didn't text me either. Another almost connection to file next to Leah, another paper cut I'd forget in a week, but still feel on cold nights when I convinced myself I was fine being alone. Later that week, I went back to the cafe again. Not for closure. Not for the Wi-Fi. Just to sit in that same corner seat and remind myself that people are still just people, messy, nervous, hopeful, afraid. I watched couples filter in and out, some talking too fast, some not talking at all. Everyone trying. Everyone bracing for disappointment. Everyone praying they wouldn't be the one who ran first. The barista brought me my coffee without asking my name. I guess even ghosts can earn a frequent flyer pass. I sat there for an hour, just watching the back door. No one came through it. No one left. For once, that felt like enough. By the time June melted into July, I'd stopped waiting for the back door to swing open. I'd stopped imagining Leah ducking through it with that apologetic half-smile, or Clara appearing at the cafe by coincidence, her hair tucked behind one ear like she'd rehearsed how casual it would all look if we just ran into each other. I'd even stopped punishing myself for the tiny sting I felt every time I remembered either of them. I'd made peace with the ghost of a girl who ran, and the woman who didn't know how to stay. I'd made peace with my own reflection, too, which turned out to be the real test all along. It was a Wednesday afternoon when the last piece of this stupid puzzle fell into place, not with drama, but with an anticlimax so small I almost missed it. I was sitting in that same cafe, I know, at this point it's practically my emotional Airbnb, trying to write copy for an ad campaign that would sell sports drinks to people who would never drink them. It was raining outside, the kind of soft, stubborn drizzle that makes the world feel like it's being gently erased. The cafe was half empty, just the hum of the espresso machine and the clatter of ceramic cups. I was people watching again, my favorite excuse for not working. There was a couple by the window, maybe 22 at most, holding hands so tight their knuckles were white. They weren't talking. They didn't need to. It was all there in the way they pressed their foreheads together when they thought no one was watching. At the table next to me, an older man in a faded windbreaker was sketching something in a tiny notebook. His pen scratched so quietly you'd think he was writing secrets for the walls to keep. No one was running. No one was slipping out the back door. No one was apologizing for being real. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe it was the rain. Maybe it was the fact that I'd finished my coffee but couldn't make myself get up. I pulled out my phone and found Lee's old chat. Still there. Still unopened since that last message. I just got scared you'd be disappointed. I didn't write to her. I knew better. That part was done. Her story with me had ended in the only way it could. But I read that line again, and for the first time it didn't make my chest tighten. It just made me sad in the quiet, ordinary way you feel when you find an old concert ticket and a jacket you haven't worn in years. A reminder that you were there, that it meant something once, that it's gone now, and that's okay. I closed the chat. I opened my camera. I caught my reflection in the black screen, my own face, under fluorescent lights that turned me half ghost, half insomniac. I almost laughed. If I'd matched with myself on Tinder, would I have run to? Maybe. Back then, probably. But sitting here now, watching strangers hold hands like it's the easiest thing in the world, I realized I didn't want to run anymore. Not for myself, anyway. I didn't need another match to fix me. I didn't need a perfectly filtered face or a dramatic escape route. I didn't need a back door. I just needed to stay where I was, for once, to let the awkwardness and disappointment and hope pile up on this rickety cafe table and see what survived when I didn't flinch away from any of it. When I finally stood to leave, I left my usual tip at the counter. The barista, the same one, still pretending not to know my name, thanked me. I almost asked her if she remembered the girl who'd slipped out the back months ago, but I didn't. That wasn't her ghost to carry. It was mine, and I was tired of dragging it through every cup of coffee I ordered. Outside, the rain had eased to a fine mist. The street was slick with it, the city looking half-washed, half-ruined, which is probably the truest version of any city. I pulled my hood up and walked toward the crosswalk, phone buzzing in my pocket with some group chat nonsense about happy hour plans I probably wouldn't show up to. Halfway down the block, I turned back, just once. The cafe windows glowed warm against the gray drizzle. No sign of her. No sign of anyone running. Just the hum of people sitting still, doing the terrifying thing we're all so bad at, staying. I didn't find love in that cafe. I didn't get the girl. I didn't chase her down, or hold her hand, or make some grand gesture to win her back. There was no movie ending, no slow-motion kiss in the rain, no montage of us laughing over coffee as the credits rolled. But sometimes you don't need a perfect ending. Sometimes you just need to know you were there, that you showed up, that you sat in your seat, that you didn't run when it would have been so easy to slip out the back and pretend you were never there at all. Sometimes that's enough.